So we finally got the call. Avionics is just about ready. They say they got it 98% done. They're going to save the last 2% for when I get up to Minnesota and check it out. So join us on 14 Victor Echo as we begin the journey leaving Austin, Texas up to Minnesota to go see Stein Air and see what it's all about to get the avionics built and have our first sneak peek at the panel going in our airplane, November 14 Victor Echo. So away we go. A long travel day, spending one day with them up in the shop. It's going to be a lot of fun, so let's see what kind of questions we can answer meeting with Stein. Got a good night's sleep. We made it into Minneapolis last night. Now it's time to head 20 more minutes south to Stein Air and see our avionics. We're going to really check out how it's come together. Kind of excited to see it. So a little white stuff on the ground behind us. You know, us Texans, we don't understand this white stuff on the ground. Why do you allow that? But hey, it's actually a lot warmer here today than it's been the past couple weeks, so it's not that bad. But all right, let's drive 20 more minutes south and let's go see our avionics. Right behind me, the avionics. Let's go check it out. We're here at Stein. Finally made it up to Minnesota and get to see our panel here at Stein. Look at this beautiful panel. You guys have been hard at work.
Yes, we have. Welcome, and thanks for coming all the way up here from Texas to see your panel in progress. We've been working hard to make sure we get things done for you on time.
It is like we have this design in our head, and at the last minute we're like, can we do our logo? And they're like, yeah, we can do anything. But I had no clue how good this logo would look, being laser etched or not. You know, most people just have their tail number up here, right? You know, not the VRs, not November 14 Victor Echo. Got to have our nice logo there. Now, the little story behind it is, you know, the logo has the baby in it now. We decided not to put the baby in there because she's growing, like you just would not believe. And yes, Melissa would love to say that that's her, but in reality, it's going to be both of them. So, two-seat airplane, you can't have three. So I guess to be FAA compliant, you know, we had to only have two people in the logo. But look how beautiful the pilot partner logo came out. The text over here. I love our little kind of. Sorry, FAA. You make us put the passenger warning here, but right underneath it, there's more to life than just being a passenger. Amelia Earhart, one of our favorite Amelia quotes for sure. So what does it take to build a panel like this?
Well, that's a really good question. So there's a wide range of skills that are required, material, supplies, things like that. But at the end of the day, it is truly something that anybody at home can do. We don't tell anybody that we do something, you know, that's totally unique and so complicated no amateur can do it. We just do it for a living and have refined it and set up the equipment. So for actually making the panel, it takes first and foremost kind of a picture of what the complete system is going to be. That really should be by far the most crucial thing that you focus on for making the panel. Because if you don't know what all the different components you're going to be using, from your external lighting, your engine, your, you know, ship's power for your alternators, things like that, all of those are going to have impacts on the panel. Same with avionics. What's the mission of the aircraft? So we start from kind of the overall vision of the mission itself and build from there. Once we have that, we start, as you know, working through design. We work really hard to work with you to get you the panel you want, but to also advise you along the way and say, hey, you know, a lot of times we're going to set this up this way because, you know, that's what's going to work. A good example of that is usually, you know, how we're going to lay out the switches. We're going to give you advice on, you know, this is going to be the order of operations in your aircraft when you're starting, when you're flying, things like that.
To make it make sense.
Exactly. And then you're going to have your own personal desires and touches with it.
Which we kind of did in this one. By, you know, most airplanes start left and work right. But in our airplane, we're setting it up to be very ambidextrous because we don't know who is going to be pilot in command on either side. So we center justified all of our engine controls. Still wanted left to right kind of orientation. So it's a nice natural flow. And then
how we separated the switches on the left and right were grouped by function.
Yep.
So that was kind of a fun process that there was no cheat sheet for me on that. And that's one, I don't know how the designers, like, you know, Nick did a great job working with us. I would have been annoyed with me going back and forth, but he was just so fantastic at, you know, sometimes like I want to try this and I don't know if it's going to work or not. And, you know, we would do these throwaway designs that we knew we probably weren't going to go with, but we needed to see. I really struggled to get the G5 centered. It's kind of a lot. And we gave up on the physical audio panel to make that happen because there's only so much room.
There is. And every aircraft, every airframe has its own different challenges and designs, right? So RV-14, we're going to be a little bit more narrow this way. And like you said, that's going to limit what you can do with the radio stack. But you've also got all of this width that we can work with. And you compare and contrast that with different airframes, and that's, I guess, where some of our wealth of experience comes from, is we've seen it, we've done it.
Because a lot of times you think, oh, you can make this work, but you know that behind the panel, there's not room.
Right.
And that knowledge is just, invaluable. But, you know, for the longest time, we had the G5 over here, and every time we looked at the panel, it wasn't balanced. Now we're still, the one regret we still have is this is blank, whereas this isn't. But we're pretty sure an iPad's going to go there. So much later. So we'll cover that up. Even when I sent Melissa the picture of this, she's like, "The left side just looks sad." It's like, don't worry, we'll have an iPad there. But it's just absolutely beautiful. And up behind here is the master diagram, right? That's kind of an important part of what makes this work.
Yes. So once we have the design all figured out, we have a rough idea of the electrical system in our heads. That's something that Nick and I think, just through experience have done. But we obviously need to transfer that onto paper. Our technicians, when they start wiring up your panel, they're supplied with an avionics drawing with the panel that's been cut, painted, engraved, with, you know, a plan that we've worked out with you for where all the remote avionics are going to go and how we're going to lay the harness out. And they've got everything at their fingertips to just sit down and go and build your panel. So the most critical thing that we do, and it's one that I have not seen another one of our competitors do, at least in the same way. Maybe somebody does, but most people are still flipping pages in manuals, making hand annotations, or making drawings that are multi-page. We don't like that. It's a really good way to, one, not get the complete picture, but two, make mistakes when you don't transfer things back and forth on different pages. So we make this single complete schematic here that's going to be of all of your avionics, as well as a detail of how the switches are wired out, and a basic overview of the power distribution for your system. In RV-14s, we also have one additional thing, which is the breakpoint connection for the fuselage harness, and which connects your panel wiring to all of that airframe wiring that's supplied by vans. So this is custom for every single person, every single panel. It is by your switches with the labeling, calls out what the labels on the end of the wires is, everything.
But it's custom for our build, yet backed by your many, many years of experience doing this, so you know what works and doesn't work. I might have been able to come to a similar conclusion on my own, but it would have been a lot more trial and error.
Quite a bit.
For me, the equation has always been, I could have done this. It would have been sloppy compared to the job that you guys do with your experience, but it would have taken me months and months to do what you do in probably weeks and weeks because of practice, experience, the right tools, and the right setup that I just don't have at home.
That's absolutely correct. And I will say it's not necessarily that you would have done a, subpar job. I think there are many people I've seen who do things themselves who do an exceptional job. And we are by no means only going to push a panel and say we're the only ones who can do it. We'll support people who buy just avionics from us. But you hit it the nail on the head. It is time. You turn time and expertise into money and vice versa. So if you're on more of a budget and you want to learn, you want to do it yourself, you want to be a builder and do that portion of it, then have at it. You
Yep.
absolutely can. And there are resources we can provide to help with that.
So-
But the flip side is, if you don't have time, you don't have confidence, you don't want to, say, learn this particular skill set, or you're intimidated by it, because let's
Right.
be honest,
That's a lot.
there is a lot going on here, and the stakes are relatively high
Yep.
for relatively small errors.
Yep.
You know, if you have a pin in the wrong spot, you can damage something. So, you know,
Best case, you're chasing a gremlin for months and months trying
Absolutely.
to figure it out, whereas we now have a master plan. If there is a gremlin down the road,
you've got our unfettered support.
yeah, we're going to find it quicker.
Yep.
This may not be the only plane that we build, and I could see taking on this challenge in the future. But trading the little bit of money for the time, it was the absolute right choice for us. And you know, our goal is to fly this airplane.
Yep.
Our goal is not to be building forever. There are people out there who much more appreciate the build process than the flight time.
My father is one of them.
Yes.
I love him dearly.
Yep.
But he spent 22 years building his quickie.
Yep.
So.
And maybe one day we'll have a long-term project, but our goal is to fly. So this was absolutely the right way for us to go. Now, what are some other ways that you work with builders who are not like all in like us?
So we have kind of three main pillars. First, obviously, panel build. It's what
Yep.
we're known for. It's our finish. It's what we sell. It's our
Yep.
top tier. In the middle, if you're not, you know, if you want to do your own panel, or just around more of a budget, because it does absolutely come with a premium.
Yep.
You can shave quite a bit of labor cost off by doing the panel yourselves, and we do what's called a pre-wire. So for a pre-wire, we supply the avionics. We do the same wiring plan that we have, but we
Okay.
stop at the avionics.
Okay.
So we're gonna do this drawing minus the switches, minus the vertical power in your case.
Okay.
But we're still gonna do the drawing and all of the wiring for the avionics, which is the most complicated part of
Yeah.
the build. From there, that just leaves you doing the physical piece of metal, painting
Okay.
it, doing whatever, or even there's other shops that do it that
Yep.
just are a flat piece of metal. And then you just do that little bit of wiring that's left there.
Okay.
Beyond that, we also sell just avionics parts, pieces,
Sure.
And we'll supply an avionics drawing, same thing with
Okay.
those avionics, kind of give people that leg up
Yep.
to kind of at least know, all right, I don't need to go through the manual and figure out
Yeah.
how these different pieces
Yeah.
talk to each other. And that's especially important if you haven't looked in the manual. Do so before you make a decision,
Yes.
because it's not always clear
Okay.
how things talk.
Because, you know, it's like, from the little research I've done, Garmin CAN bus is a thing.
Yes, it is.
And there's do's and don'ts. And I don't know all those. And I'm kind of, I think that right there is the one thing that I'm glad that I'm skipping the detailed knowledge of. I'm still going to learn a lot in the process, so I'm not going to be completely, you know, devoid on understanding it. But
The reality is you'll have to.
Yep.
As we've said many times before, we don't necessarily believe in the plug-and-play solutions. We try to do as much as we can for you. There is still, no matter what you do, a large, you know, portion of an install you're going to have to do.
Yep.
You're going to have to mount remote boxes. You're going to have to hook up some wires. You're going to have to set up your engine sensors. You're going to have to do some calibrations, you know. You are, even with this, you're still building an airplane.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
And that's one thing we said in the one of our recent episodes is, you know, plug and play is becoming, I think, almost a dirty word in the industry.
A marketing term, for sure.
Yeah, and you know, of course, because there are those builders out there who want to quick build everything. They want it done for them. I mean, that's where Builder Assist really shines for that type of person. We find ourselves more of the hybrid people, whereas like, if you sent me the whole forward fuselage, all I had to do is rivet it in, I think I would be disappointed. Because where's my customization? Where's my ability to understand it 5 years down the road when I need to troubleshoot something, or you know, because let's face it, there's a lot of vibration that's happening. Nothing's going to be perfect for 10, 20 years. You know, you're going to need to know how it works.
Yep. And on top of that, you're going to lose your agency.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to lose your customization, because the flip side, to make something truly plug and play, there are two routes, right? Or what somebody may consider more plug and play, right? Is you can make it like an RV-12 where there are no options.
Okay.
This is it. And then when everything is set in stone, okay, now I have the ability to tell you where every single nut plate is going to go, where every single component is going to go, what every wire is for. Or you can make it really, really expensive, and we can put a lot of labor into making it on a one-on-one basis.
Right.
And so I think pretty much everybody in the industry, short of Build Assist, has found various forms of this, of guiding you through that. But I don't believe there's a single person out there that does something that is truly what I would consider plug and play, where I take this, I bolt my screws in, and I turn the master on.
And I think a lot of the people who think plug and play only see the front.
Yes.
Right? And you think about it, it's like, okay, I mean, even here, my GTN is not in the rack right now, but the autopilot is like, I mean, come on, just plug and play, right? What you don't see, and you're probably not seeing on camera, and I'll get it on B-roll, is all these boxes underneath.
Right.
That's got to go somewhere, and you know, the way Garmin designs most of this stuff, this is just the front end.
Right.
The brains are back behind here.
Yep.
And you know, you got to figure out how in very limited space. Definitely glad we put the access panels in on the forward fuselage. I think why that's an option and not standard, I'm not sure yet. But I guess if you're going simple VFR panel, you might get away without it. But
yeah, and I mean, for the most part, many aircraft are able to, and you could too if you wanted to. You could put everything on the aft side of the sub panel. There is a way. You can stack boxes on boxes. You can make a bracket. You can make a shelf. That works. It maybe is a little bit more work than putting in an access panel. It's just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Later access, as we talked about earlier, I think that's where doing what you're doing
makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you ever need to get at the VPX, which you're going to be putting forward, that's going to be a lot easier to go through an access panel than it is to the upside.
There's a high probability that we're going to want to change something down the road. You know, something new is going to come out. Hopefully, if Garmin does a upgraded G3X, it's plug and play, and I can, you know, do it. But we don't know because Garmin hasn't really talked about what they're doing next.
Yep. We'll all find out at the same time.
Yeah. So, but it's really exciting to see this panel. So, you know, I guess when you walk me through like the process here, we're going to walk through and get some footage of the different spots of this factory.
Yep.
This is kind of where it ends, right?
Right. So this is more or less the last stop before it leaves the building. Obviously, we've got a little bit of an interim. Where this sits right now, we're probably at about 80% complete.
Okay.
Once your panel is done being wired up, we turn it on, we do all our configurations, we do a full testing procedure. We do a comm radio check, VOR ILS check in your case, we do cross communication checks, go through everything, check for switch power, and do a final verification on everything. We have a few wrap-up procedures I don't need to get into, but for all intents and purposes. This is the end of the line. So to get here for a panel, like I said, we start with the point of sale, actually.
Yep.
That was, I'm sure, when you were talking to Nick, very important. Because like I said, we're talking about that mission.
Yeah.
That mission is going to dictate, are we using a GTN? Maybe a GNX 375 is more appropriate.
Yep.
Maybe no that navigator at all. Garmin or Dynon, you know? We've got choices to make. And so we want to start there. So we make as few changes as possible through that design process. Or, more importantly, so we don't forget something.
Yeah.
I don't want to start designing, you know, a hard IFR panel for you, sell you, you know, something that's $15,000 more expensive than you need if you're never going to even punch through a layer.
Right.
Once we have that more or less ironed out, that's when we're going to get into the design. So that design process, just to kind of reiterate, we're going to go through. We have no cap on how many design revisions we do. Yep.
Thankfully.
Yep. You had quite a few.
Yep.
Usually they're less, but that's okay. We'll work with you anyways. You had something in mind, and we wanted to go back and get it. So we're going to go back and forth. We usually start from. We don't really have a template, but we start from kind of this is what I believe for what you're looking for.
But you're going to keep us grounded to reality and not do something that is unbuildable.
Right. And that's going to function for you in the aircraft because, again, we've done a lot of these. We've gotten feedback from people as they're flying, and we can just try to impart that
Yeah.
experience as much as we can, because for many people, this is your first aircraft. Once the design's been completed, you say, hey, I'm ready to go. Let's cut this. I'm happy with
Sure.
everything. We split our product into kind of 3 phases, and they're happening in parallel. First is the easiest for us. We are your avionics.
Yeah.
Most of it we pull off the shelf. We keep it in the vault, but usually there's a few odds and ends we got to order to fill. As that's trickling in, we are conjointly working on your avionics drawing and your harness layout.
Okay.
And the panel is being fabricated kind of in a separate arm. And so that panel is cut. It is then sent off to paint, which is the only thing we do outsource. We do the engraving in-house when it comes back. And then when all 3 of those things, so the avionics are all here, the packet is done and signed off by you, and the panel has been completed, those all are put on a cart, and it's ready for kind of our production.
Awesome. And look how beautiful the cut and the paint went. The color we picked, I could not be happier with, and the laser engraving job that Danny did is just spot on. Let's shift a little bit to history. How long has kind of this world been happening for Stein?
So SteinAir started back in the early 2000s, kind of at the tail end of the Northwest layoffs.
Okay.
So Stein and Jed originally were building an RV-6 at the time. And that RV-6, they ended up with a lot of wire, a lot of coax from. They bought it in bulk, and so they opened a web store.
Okay.
Little by little, that turned into them doing coax cables, which actually turned into doing harnesses for OEMs.
Okay.
So we did, for years, all of Dynon's harnesses that they still sell. They've since moved on to having a different factory make them. I believe they outsourced it to somewhere in Asia.
Okay.
But we made all of those for years in the bucket, in the hundreds.
Yep.
Same with vans. We started off early doing a lot of those for the RV-12s.
Okay.
Back before EFISs were even a thing, or at least before they were common.
Yep.
I mean, we had harnesses for the RV-12 for like the D180.
Okay.
And kind of have built and grown from there. Over time, we added different portions to our business, and panels just kind of has become the main segment of our business as it's grown.
Okay. And how long has panels been, like, when did that shift happen?
I don't know the exact date, but I think it was pretty early on.
Pretty early.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And like I said,
The majority of the company's history, yeah.
And it's that history, it's that it's those little lessons that you've forgotten that you've learned that is the real value, in my opinion, of why it's so important for someone who's never done this before on their first build to lean on people who know the answers just intrinsically.
Yep.
That I would have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, and a lot of our experience too comes from not just the aviation world, where a lot of the initial founding members of this company were Northwest people.
Okay.
So we had people who were mechanics and who were in the sim shop.
Okay.
That formed the core of our initial staff, and we've kind of grown from there. But we're also a lot of builders. I mentioned my dad was a builder. I grew up in this environment, and many of people here have grew up around aviation, around small aircraft, around kit aircraft. Who have been flying, who have been doing various things in this market. And so we actually come at it, I think, at a very personal level as well. If I'm helping you with your install or through your panel, I can't help but look at it through the lens of growing up and seeing the trouble and the hardships and the ups and the pits and valleys, but also the highs, that my dad experienced through his build. And so I think those personal touches.
And you're building now too.
I am, yeah. So I'm building a Hummel, actually, a Hummel Ultra Cruiser.
It's going to be a neat little plane. We're going to get some footage and show that of your work in progress. And so you feel the same things we do.
Absolutely.
Like you know when I say I don't know when we actually need the avionics, you know what I mean, because it's you can't plan these home builds as well as you can down a factory line.
Right, exactly. And everyone's a little different. And there's going to be unique challenges to everyone and unique variables, Some people come at it, they already have an engine before they buy an airframe. And sometimes things like the 2022, pandemic happened, and COVID throws supply chain into chaos, and we have to work around that, and that's just part of the deal.
Yeah, and we just do the best we can. But this panel will be making its way to Texas here in the next couple weeks, and I could not be happier with what we
Glad to
see.
hear it.
You guys are doing an amazing job, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know the different people who've worked on our panel and are doing other things here. About how big is Stein?
So we've got currently 20 employees.
Wow.
So,
Keeping busy too.
yep.
I mean,
very much so.
I just sitting here. We had to move the camera once because we put it in the hallway, and people need to get to different things. Everyone here is busy and working hard, except for the person working on my panel, because we evicted her from here to do this. So I think we need to allow her to get back to her station. But I really appreciate you guys and the hard work that you've been doing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you as well, and thank you for taking the time to come down here and look at it, and talk to everybody for us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for watching 14 Victor Echo, and well, Melissa's not here to say see you next time.